So here's a little story for you. I actually purchased my Tesla and then had it for 3 or 4 days, and then we went on vacation, and I drove a van that was an internal combustion engine van and drove that for the week we were gone. Then came back, and I've been driving the Tesla exclusively for about 5 weeks. And it's really interesting because we had to go somewhere, and we were taking my wife's car, which is an ICE car, and we actually got in it, and I was driving, and I had this very weird feeling. Now, to be fair, I sometimes have a little inner ear problem where I have a little balance issue, especially when I'm in the passenger seat or the back seat, sometimes in a car, any car, I'm a little uncomfortable. But when I'm driving, I never have a problem. But here I was sitting in her car, and I was very uncomfortable. And it was a weird sort of a feeling, and part of it had to do with, certainly, the fact that I was getting back into an internal combustion engine car. It just felt weird. There's this weird negative transfer of learning that happens once you learn to drive a Tesla, because you're driving the car with the gas pedal and the whole thing, the way it works, and the regenerative braking, and you have the screen that shows you where the cars are around you and all of these things. And it just felt different getting inside of a car and having to do the car and the brake and the gas and the whole thing. And even where the gear shift was kind of threw me a little bit. It was just sort of a weird feeling. I adjusted to it within a few minutes. After about 5 or 10 minutes in the car, I felt comfortable again. But it was a very strange thing that happened to me, and I was kind of surprised by it. It took me off guard. People had told me that this happens, but I didn't expect it. I was like, yeah, no problem, whatever. And I got in the car, and I was like, whoa, what do I do here? And I did have a funny moment because we had to get gas while we were out, and I pulled into a gas station, and I actually looked at her for a second, and I was kidding, totally kidding. I said, how does this gas thing work again? And even though I said that and I was totally kidding, I had that, it was a microsecond in my brain where I went, wait, how does the gas thing work? And it went in passing, and that was fine, and I was able to do everything, without issues. It's only been a few weeks, only been a month. It's not that hard. But it's that moment in time where you're doing these different things where you have to think about the car so completely differently. The way you travel and the way you do things is very different, and it just took some getting used to. And I figure over time, as I drive more and I get more comfortable in the Tesla, I'll be more comfortable transferring back to a car if I need to, because I know occasionally I need to rent a car, or I need to drive my wife's car, or whatever. It happens. So, I'm prepared for that, but it was just a weird feeling because it was the first time it happened to me, and it just had I had that strange reaction that I couldn't quite figure out what the heck was going on, why I felt that way when I got in the car. And it was just an overwhelming sensation of, wait, this is so different, I can't get used to this. And that's the thing about the Tesla. It is so completely different to drive than anything you're used to that it really does take time to kind of figure out. And when you try to transfer back, there's an adjustment period. So just something interesting that surprised me, and I was kind of shocked by it. Now that out of the way, I wanted to share 2 other things with you. It's just 2 observations. One is the cost of driving the car. I'm doing some math on how much it's actually costing me to do the electric, and the electric is very inexpensive. So for the last 500 miles or so, I've spent a total of about $8 to put electric in my car. That's it. So I'm kind of impressed with how this is working, how I'm able to get something out of it. What I'm doing is I'm doing the full math. I actually have written some programs. The car itself has an open, has an API that has an endpoint in it, so you can actually get in and get your data and find out how your car is performing, and you can grab that data and pull it into a database. So I'm doing that now. And my thought is, if I can get it to work right, I'll probably build an app for the iPhone that you can download and play with. I'll keep you apprised of that. I'll let you know when that happens, if it happens, whatever. But it's interesting because I'm starting to learn about how the economies work on this thing. It's really pretty remarkable. I think I said at one point that I thought I'd probably be spending about $30 on electric versus roughly $90 or so on gas over the same time period, and I think that's probably going to work out in the math. I'm just still going through it and figuring it out. But it's interesting to me because the price of insurance went up, the net cost to get in the car went up, so those things were a little higher. So if I can bring the price point down by the gas savings, that's remarkable. So I'm kind of impressed with it so far, and the charging has been easy. I haven't taken a long road trip yet, but I can charge at work, I can charge at home, no problems. Always feel like I'm plenty in control of that. Never had any issues, or haven't had any issues so far, and I don't think I will. I've been watching more about other people taking road trips, and I plan on taking one soon, so hopefully that'll work out as well. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was there's one weird thing about this car, and it has to do with the visibility around the car. And I'm going to try and show it to you, and let's see how it works out. As I look around, you know, I look around the car and it's like, you got plenty of glass, right? So you can see around the car pretty well, and that's great. But where it really becomes a problem is when you turn it around and you're looking the other way. So you have this mirror on the side, and it's kind of a small mirror, and it doesn't really give you a great view behind you. So you're kind of lost with the view on that side, and the mirror on the other side is the same size, and you have kind of a loss in the mirror there too, because it's not a very big mirror. The last car I drove was a van, and it had a pretty good size mirror, and felt pretty comfortable with that. So as I look out the rear view mirror, what I notice is it's really pretty small out there. It's kind of hard to see. You can see that car passing behind me. It was a little hard to see because it's not that much space you're looking into there. It's a little tight when you're looking out there. So when I go back and forth between that mirror, and over to this mirror, it's kind of hard to get a sense of what's going on around me. And because of the way the car is laid out, I'm going to try and turn my body here as though I'm turning my head. If I look back that way, I don't have much of a blind spot because of the way the glass is. You have a lot of glass. And if I turn around this way and look out this side, well, I have a little bit of a problem because the seat is so big, so I kind of have to look a little awkwardly back to see behind me. Now, I'm an old school driver. I like to use my mirrors effectively. That's something I like to do. I realize in this car, it's different. And because of the rear backup camera and whatever, I have an ability to see things in a very different way than I would have otherwise. So if I use the backup camera, I can see pretty much everything. I don't really need to look through the mirrors. I should, and I do, but I don't need to in the same way. So it's a very different experience when I sit here and I look out the back and look through the camera, as opposed to looking in the mirrors, because the mirrors don't always give me what I'm looking for. I just don't have that same comfort level with these mirrors. They're just too small and they're oddly oriented. So it's really kind of strange. Takes some getting used to. Now, because the car will show me other cars around me when I'm driving, I do have that ability to see other things, which is very helpful. And I really like having that. But it's weird because that is not what my expectation is, because I'm so used to using the mirrors and looking out to see where I'm going, that having to use all of the car features is taking some getting used to. You know, like I say, I like to be an old school person, and I like to use my mirrors because that's the way I'm most comfortable driving. But that's not necessarily the best way to drive. And here comes a car behind me, so you can see it, you know, nice big view of the car, right? As opposed to what we saw in the mirror a minute ago. Very different. So it doesn't feel like it's a very big mirror. And that's okay because you have the great backup camera, but it's the one thing that I'm still having trouble getting used to in this car, that I'm not comfortable with the mirror size and the way it feels when I look out the window. So that's my story about the visibility in the car. It's not a big deal, but it's just something I have to get used to as far as being able to see out the car and decide how I want to use the mirrors and whatever.